Welcome to Twin Signals, Metrics at Work, with Elizabeth P. Morgan. Because metrics only matter when everyone agrees on what they mean.
In this episode of Metrics at Work, I'm joined by Mario Lenz, Chief Product and Technology Officer at HighGraph. Mario explains how one simple ratio, innovation to KTLO, keeping the lights on, reveals whether an organization is investing in the future or simply maintaining the past. Product and engineering leaders will learn how this metric helps teams balance innovation, technical debt, and the continuous learning needed to sustain high performance while keeping everyone aligned on where engineering effort is really going. Hey everybody, and welcome to Metrics at Work. It's really fun for me today to be here with Mario Lenz, the Chief Product and Technology Officer at HighGraph, making headless CMS platforms for digital teams at mid-market and enterprise companies. Hey Mario, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure being here and meeting you again, Liz.
Great. Hey, Mario, I was remembering when we worked together at Market Logic years back, my office was right next to the program increment planning wall. And I remember this thing, it was like a crime scene. There must have been like 15 columns of activity, 200 Post-it notes that I could see, and then miles of string mapping together the dependencies across a complex roadmap exercise. And in that context, you always had this reputation for being the person you could always ask a question and get yes or no. So amidst the complexity, you always got a short answer with Mario Lenz. So really fun for me to be with you today and to hear your take on metrics, and curious as to whether you're still working with physical string or you've managed to digitize the...
But of course not. Actually for two reasons. First, I remember that used to be scaled agile framework, and I don't think that's, appropriate these days, and you don't work like that anymore. You work in a much more agile breakdown fashion. Also, AI changed the game. Things are handled differently. And then there is a very, very, say, could you say technical, or whatever, just factual. HighGraph is a remote-first company.
Yeah.
There is not even a way to gather everybody around a physical wall. So we need to have it digital. So we're using linear a lot for all of that. And then we break it down. But as you said, the board, I still even have a picture somewhere in my archive. It was, even when I look at it today, is it funny? Is it frightening? I don't know. But
it's a lot.
Indicating dependencies. This is, oh my God.
It's a lot. So Mario, for our friends today, could you tell us a little bit about HighGraph and your role there, the HighGraph, and what the company is doing, where they are in their journey?
Yeah, sure. HighGraph is a headless CMS, so we are a content management system, but headless in the sense, for those of you who know, for example, the typical candidates like WordPress, you have a web front end on top of it, and the headless idea is, hey, we do not care. Well, we do care, but we do not prescribe the front end. It could be a website, it could be an app, it could be a gaming platform, it could be whatever kind of other channel. And that's the pure nature of headless. HighGraph specifically is very strong when, internally we call it when the content itself, the entire content landscape is complex as such. So not complex because of us, because of the product, but because of the business essentially. So when you're running say you're an international gaming company and you're running games or content across many, 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 many different games, many, many, many different countries and jurisdictions and locales and launches and all of that. This is complex by nature, yeah? And so our job is to actually, I could even say our job is to not make that complexity go away. That would be maybe not sure whether then it's evil, but make it manageable. Maybe that's the right phrase here.
And sorry. And where is HighGraph at in its journey? It's like the size and the growth and the customer base.
We are 60 people, roughly speaking. So when you talk of, financing and all that, we just had a Series B already 2-3 years ago. So a typical scale-up company. That's also where I personally, as a product and technology leader, usually come in. I mean, it was the same at Market Logic when you remember, that kind of not early stage. We have an ICP. We have a clear product market fit, a clear scale. Now it's time to scale up. It's where we are.
And your team, you're sitting as Chief Product Technology Officer. You're sitting across the product and engineering teams. So.
Yes. So I joined as the CPO, product only nearly 3 years ago. But about 1.5 years early 2025, I also took over technology side, which kind of helps a bit because, hey, you have one person to actually nail in terms of delivery. And so that helps a little bit. No bad mood. So our co-founding CTO is still on board. He's just more focusing on real cool tech and AI coding and all of that, but not dealing, with people management and processes and everything. So it's
and all the things you're amazing at, Mario. Your special things.
I don't know, but
and Mario, I understand when you took on engineering, you hit a bit of a rough patch in terms of metrics and you needed to reshape the organization. Did I get that right?
Well, it wasn't really when I took it on. Maybe when I took on the engineering, when I also took on the CTO role, I suddenly had the power to implement what I wanted. So before that, basically what we had, even in the management team, in the executive team, we were always debating, hey, where are we? Is our engineering team any good? Are we fast enough? Is the quality good enough? These typical discussions. And we never had anything, okay, here's a metric, here is a dashboard, here's something where we can discuss. And these are the facts. And now let's say, is it enough? Is it not enough? Do we need to invest more or less? And this is what I flipped. So the moment I became also CTO in addition to my CPO role, I implemented essentially something like very similar to DORA metrics, gave it a first try, sketched what I wanted to have, and then handed it to my VP engineering and stating, this is what we want to have. Make sure we always have this on a monthly basis. Make sure, it's clean. The data is validated. It really is accurate on the metrics. So now we have something to discuss. So some objective measure, basically. So that's basically what I did. The question was there before, but now that I basically was in power, I could enforce it. Essentially, that was the...
Okay, and these were the fundamental deployment frequency, change failure rates.
Exactly those kind of things. So, probably usually known DORA or DORA-like, so CFRs, number of BRs, the KTLO, so keep the lights on maintenance versus innovation ratio, these typical things that you measure. Also in terms of quality, so how many serious bugs did we have, these kind of things. So when somebody complains about, hey, we always have poor quality, you at least have some number to look at. Whether that's always the correct answer is yet a different question, but at least you have something to start with.
Well, that's what we're here to discuss, right? So maybe let's, and I think you've mentioned a few there, but what is for you the metric that you depend on most?
Well, maybe depend on is a bit misleading. So particularly these engineering metrics, I mean, be it innovation rate, be it change failure rate, be it quality, to me are more like metrics where I look at them, we collect them. I want to, basically it's a health status. And if everything is green, I ignore them. So basically it's only matter if they turn red, essentially. Yeah, okay, something's wrong. If CFRs go up or if bug rate goes up, we have a problem. Let's deal with it. As long it's on the level that we all agreed upon, it's all fine. It's basically a kind of sanity check. Maybe that's also a good way to express it. So that's basically what I'm looking at. Also in terms of innovation. So right now, HighGraph is kind of oscillating around 50% of really new stuff versus more like keeping the lights on, minor improvements, all of that. And I think for us, that's also with an established customer base that we need to serve also, and that's quite a healthy rate. So it's more like this. Particularly, these engineering metrics are more like, is everything healthy? When you say depend on, I mean, being a CPO, even in my primary role, I mean, even today, I would say CPTO, the P is bigger than the T. It's usually more the product metrics. So product usage, attribution of features, that kind of stuff that is more relevant.
Yeah, I think you had said to me that these are the hard to fake outcome signals,
Yep.
right? Change failure rate, product usage depth, and innovation versus keep the lights on. Yeah.
Well, the latter, maybe it's already difficult sometimes, and can you trust the tagging and all the underlying?
So thinking about, I get that the metrics you depend on are anything that's orange or red when it should be green. And that the metrics you turn to as an innovator are things like change failure rate and product usage depth. You've also mentioned this innovation versus keep the lights on ratio. Could we maybe dive into that one in a little more detail?
So, I mean, it's actually very simple. All our activities, all our tickets are essentially tagged as to what they belong to, different kinds of categories. So there are bugs, there are minor feature improvements, and then there is innovation work, so things that we work on. And I think there is a fourth one regarding infrastructure work. So when it comes to more like the hosting and all of that environment. And essentially, the innovation ratio is just the total effort that goes into innovation versus the ratio of that compared to the total effort across all the engineering tickets. So that's a very simple math formula that we apply. And tickets are tagged, and then you can just aggregate automatically. I mean, it just does it out of the box. But that's not so much a problem. The problem is more, particularly when we implemented that in the beginning, the problem was more around discipline of tagging features and tagging tickets and tagging them correctly and all these kind of things. But once, people got used to it, I mean, the teams got used to it, it's a no-brainer.
It's my pleasure to tell you that Twin Signals Metrics at Work is sponsored by HelloTwin.ai, the world's first digital authority. Stop managing agents. Start managing outcomes. Sign up for the private beta program today at HelloTwin.ai.
Yeah, basically, maybe there is actually an interesting angle to it. So first of all, what we measure today, because it's basically working on the tickets that engineering worked on the number of tickets and the time spent on these tickets. By the very nature of these metrics, they only measure, that's a limitation that we have so far, they only measure the engineering time that went into these buckets. So how much did they spend on bug fixing, maintenance, improving existing features versus true innovation? And that is where we are at around 50%. Again, I'm happy with that ratio. I think that's good. We can never be at 100% because we have an established customer base. Customers want improvements. Customers want to be served. Yes, customers also report bugs. I heard about that. Yeah, happens to the best software on the planet. So I'm fairly happy with the 50%. The thing where I'm thinking furthermore as a next step is, okay, but that innovation, if we measure it that way, actually does not tell us, then let me think, how fast do we learn? Before we ship even, how often do we talk to customers? Which experiments do we try? We have a lab feature in HighGraph where we ship prototypes, no obligation, just try it out at your own risk, this kind of thing. So these kind of learning capabilities, that is something that actually in the coming weeks and months, I also want to implement on top of it. So innovation right now is innovation in terms of shipment, in terms of what engineering teams really worked on. But we definitely need to focus also on that learning and experiment area of innovation. The thing that I still want to improve now as a next step is that learning experience. So before we even start engineering it, before we ship anything, if we just prototype, if we do discovery, if we, how do we make sure actually my biggest fear is how do we make sure we spend enough time there, learning.
Yeah, it's we're all learning more than we ever imagined. It's an unbelievably exciting time. Mario, you mentioned that you discount any metric that's green, right? Because a lot of your metrics, of course, are designed diagnostically to signal problems. Are there other metrics that you discount?
Well, it's basically the things that, which are either easy to game or where AI just completely changes the game, inflates them, all of that. So, I mean, lines of code has never been a good metric, even worse with AI. And honestly, even, the number of PRs that teams submitted and all of that doesn't help, because either number of PRs goes up because of AI, or size of PRs goes bigger due to AI, and that's why the number remains more or less constant. So that's nothing to really look at. Again, it's more like what I'm looking like is the trend. Yeah, where are we moving here? Also, at the other end of the spectrum, I wouldn't say discount, but of course, I'm looking at them, but they are very hard to base decisions on, is any business metric. So revenue, net revenue retention, ARR, of course, for me as a CPTO, super relevant. But I mean, we are B2B. We have 6-month sales cycles. I mean, the moment ARR moves, we shipped the feature 6 months ago. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just so lagging that it cannot be used really to steer the organization. That might be different in other domains when you're B2C and maybe you do something today and you see it in 48 hours, the effect of it, not in our industry.
Got it. So given that, well, maybe just thinking about the metrics that do give you an indication, can you share perhaps a product metric that revealed something unexpected when you took over the product organization, or when you brought these engineering and product organizations together?
Yeah. So in HighGraph, when you sign up, when you create a new project, you can actually launch with a template, we call it. It was called a starter. Think of it like a template. Yeah, like when you go to, I don't know, Miro board, it can start with a template that mimics a specific style or methodology or whatever. And we always thought, hey, these templates are great because they speed up activation. And, when I can start with a template instead of a blank screen, that will be faster. And the data showed that's totally not the case. Mostly because, yes, people use these templates, but these templates never turn live, as we call it. So when you start with a template, that will never become your final website or whatever. It's more like people use these templates for test driving or window shopping. Show me what's possible. And this is how it works. The aha moment and maybe even the wow moment. But when I want to build myself, I start from scratch. I want to have a blank table and really clean, no cognitive load, all of that. And that was actually kind of eye-opening. We've also identified not only, that these templates never went live, also which templates were used the most, which not, which was also a little bit confusing for us because we expected something completely else here. So what we did is actually, and then we did that earlier this year in Q1, we completely replaced that entire library with just a single, we called it a showcase. So essentially a polished demo. It shows you everything HighGraph can do for an enterprise customer in a nice, beautiful way. I always compare it to, to test driving a car. So I go to my local dealer and say, I'm thinking about driving this car. Can I test drive it? And I sit in and I like it. It's like, yeah, I buy it, but I will not buy this particular car that I used for the test drive. I order my very personal one. So that's the kind of thing that we're seeing. And interestingly, after that change, we saw after basically the first 2-3 months, we saw an immediate improvement in activation. Significant, kind of 3x improvement here. So that was really a core learning for us, that people are actually separating this learning, what can I do? How do I do it? And they are separating that from the building part. Now I built my own. So
Great.
that was, again, the metric was totally, hey, templates are, first of all, we thought they are useful, but then they turned out not to be. And the wrong templates used to or showed to be more useful. And that's basically where we saw then the change happening.
So by revealing or digging deeper into the product usage metrics, you were able to see that there could be a much more exciting and elegant activation journey after the test drive.
Yeah.
And then I guess conversely, have you been fooled by a metric that looked right and then conflicted with truth?
Oh yeah. When we talked about AI, we just briefly touched on AI a few minutes ago. And that is, of course, we are also kind of, should I say AI first, maybe is too big of a term, but HighGraph is very strong in using AI technology, particularly in the product engineering side. And we had tooling in place that would tell us essentially how much AI are our engineers using when they actually code. So of the total number of lines shipped, that number of lines of code shipped, what percentage actually has been implemented using AI or AI assisted or whatnot. And that looked wonderful, great. I mean, honestly, it all works automatically, whatever. And it was also super precise, something like, I don't know, 3 digits behind the comma, I don't know, 92.578%, whatever, kind of precision. The problem is the moment we were digging a little bit deeper something is wrong. I mean, there were areas when we expected a lower AI adoption because of the complexity and nature of the problem. It was even higher and vice versa. When it came to UI, when you would expect, a higher adoption, it was lower. Also weird effects week over week. So basically it behaved very oddly. And the reason for that, actually, when we're digging deeper, then we found out, okay, actually there is some, even tooling providers who do these and suggest the tagging and all of that. They sometimes implicitly apply some heuristics and guesses, which, are not perfectly correct. So to me, the learning is, precision doesn't mean accuracy. So it looks super precise, but when you look one level deeper, you say, wait, that cannot be accurate. And there are the assumptions, or say the data, the numbers that flow into that metrics are already wrong. And then, of course, the resulting metric is wrong as well. So I believe that these tools, first of all, we are optimizing. We are also in touch with the vendor, telling them where it's off and helping them to improve it. I think the bigger story for us is also not so much the number itself, but the trend, essentially. Where is it going? And is it, because you would assume even when their calculation is not 100% accurate, you still trend-wise, you would still see, okay, it's going up, it's going down, or so that would still help.
The trend is our friend. Yeah. Mario, you've introduced a metrics culture in an organization that didn't really have one, and you're exploring new metrics all the time. How are people, in your experience, reacting to metrics? Do they love them, engage with them, tolerate them, resist them? What is the reaction you see?
I mean, first of all, I think everybody is engaging. There is no resistance. Everybody is also interested. Yeah, we keep getting questions of what is this and what is that, and can I tell this, can I tell that? And either they go to dashboards themselves, so self-service. So we have a tool, data warehouse in place where people can go to. Now with AI and MCP, all of that, that's even gotten simpler to do that. I think the challenge in particularly in HighGraph and probably also in other organizations, but when I'm speaking of HighGraph, is more interpretation. So essentially, is it when I look at a chart, when I look at a big number, when I look at a trend, can I trust the data well enough so that I can draw conclusions? And I remember myself, I was very fresh at HighGraph. I went to these dashboards and they looked great. And then I changed one little filter setting, whatever, and all of a sudden it changed completely. And I said, oh, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Why would it completely flip flip around. I mean, something's wrong here. Something's, and then all of a sudden, asking the BI team, for example, it became obvious. Yeah, you know what? There is some underlying assumption which is not visible on the dashboard, or we only looked at a particular cohort of customers, but we didn't make that assumption explicit. So these kind of things. So it's more like, again, interpretation. And again, the key question is, do I understand the data enough to really draw a conclusion based on that? That's the thing. But no resist. I mean, quite the opposite.
Great. How do you coach your team to get better at interpretation?
Yeah, asking questions, essentially. I mean, in the end, they have to explain it. And also when they bring data to me, I'll, try to poke a hole and say, why is that? And where can that be? And all of that. But I think we are. So I don't think that's a major problem today. I mean, people are, as with many cases, the moment you are aware of a potential problem, you're 50% solved the problem. Yeah, that kind of. So people are already, hey, I'm looking at something, maybe not. Let's dig one level deeper. Okay, I can trust that data. So we have that situation. So it's more 50% awareness, problem, and then you have mitigated that risk already.
And we've been talking mostly, I mean, the fusion of product and engineering with your leadership has already creates an environment of shared meaning, right? What experience have you had with meaning and metrics and understanding across teams?
For that, I would pick another example, and that is we have, of course, as probably every company on this planet, typical funnel health metrics. When it comes to our funnel, again, for us, it's B2B, it's a longer sales cycle. But we also have a kind of product-led motion, so you can just sign up for free, and some customers follow that path. So it's a bit complicated. And the funnel health is to me like it sits on two ends. So product team looks at the funnel health in terms of product metrics, product adoption, feature usage. How long does it take somebody to onboard and complete his first task? The typical thing that you can really monitor and observe and measure inside the product. And then you have the revenue teams, which, of course, they look differently. They look at, do they qualify? Are they, marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads? Are they an opportunity? What kind of firmographics? All of that. And in the end, all of that, of course, results in a funnel. So it's not even a single metric, but a full funnel of metrics. And to me, it's the picture, the mental model that I have in my head is like, it's like a Venn diagram, where you have an overlapping area where both of us share the same, but the pure onboarding and sign up is more with the product, and the pure everything that follows after maybe a sales conversation and negotiations is more the commercial teams. And in between, we have that shared understanding. And that was a little bit of a challenge, and sometimes maybe it is even today. That, where exactly are we? Do we measure the right things? Is it relevant? We believe on the product side, we believe when you observe that behavior, that particular behavior of a user, that's an strong indicator of somebody being a valuable prospect. And then maybe the commercial team might think differently, and vice versa. I mean, the most obvious classic thing is most commercial teams would immediately discard if somebody signs up with a Gmail. So, hey, we want a company email. But you know what? We already had decent business coming through that because somebody tried on a lazy Sunday afternoon. Some lead developer tried the tool with his Gmail, and the next week or 2 weeks later, they brought it to their marketing team, and bam, they became a customer. So we have that. But in the first place, you would think, hey, you know what? Let them sign up and they can join, and we have a free hobby plan, but frankly, they will never become enterprise customers. That's a very obvious thing where it's.
So this challenge is at the intersection of your Venn diagram, where the product behaviors meet the commercial potential, and how do you manage that? How do you own or manage or establish meaning in that cross-functional area?
Yeah, as you said, cross-functional. So we have a very strong collaboration. We talk about that. In the end, the full funnel is in the end finally owned by the commercial teams. I mean, it's their tool, not ours. We support it, we contribute to it, and we try to be helpful and bring the right metrics and all of that. But in the end, they have to decide, how can we measure, how can we predict, how can we engage with prospects and customers. And then basically we have a lot of these conversations, very informal. I mean, HighGraph is still a very early stage scale-up company, it's very open culture. Slack message here, meeting there, typical things. Hey, what if we measure this? What if we measure that? Always also sometimes does not mean we immediately implement it. I mean, one example that, for example, I usually kind of push back on is any onboarding survey. You're signing up for a new product and then you're first forced to answer 27 different questions before you even see the first screen. And we know nobody will do that. Everybody skips them. If they respond, they just randomly pick a response, so it's unreliable anyway.
Mario.
Well, that was, where are you? Where we then have a discussion and feedback and all of that. But in the end, commercial teams own it, and we, from the product side, we try to be helpful.
Thank you for that. We try to understand our segmentation and our use cases.
But surveys is, it's known.
Understand. We agree to disagree. Yeah.
There are better ways of doing that, by the way. I'm not saying don't do it, do it differently.
Yeah. Maybe just stepping back, if you thought of a metric, maybe it's a product or technology metric, but if you thought of a metric that you think is often misunderstood or that you wished everyone understood deeper, what might that be?
I have an example here, and that is quality. It's the same. Objectively, you could say, well, it's an objective measure. You just count the number of bugs or, I don't know, bug versus feature ratio, whatever. The thing here that we've observed is that on the product and engineering side, of course, we talked about DORA and all of that. We measure, and basically it's all green, 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 green. So we had 0 major bugs for the last couple of months. Maybe there was one, but very, very rarely, very seldom. So basically, as measured, the average is it's even better than acceptable. It's very good, very good. But then you have to say quality as experience. So when you think of HighGraph, the example or the typical example is you do change certain things on your content in the tool, and you see and you get immediate feedback. And if something goes off, okay, you just try it again, no worries. But if you want to launch, say, for example, a big Black Friday campaign, it has to go live in Australia at midnight. You don't want to be, and you're working here from Germany. Well, maybe Germany that could work because you have 12 hours. You can do it the day before. Anyway, you know what I mean?
I know
so you
what
don't
you mean.
want to stay up at night, essentially, and observe it all over the planet and all of that. So that's the area where even the 99.9% zero failure, or not zero, but 0.1 failure rate is not acceptable, because that's the kind of situation when, hey, when it fails, basically the outcome is, well, it's a catastrophic, or it's a major incident, or it's, something really, really, really bad, and it annoys people. So maybe the typical example that apart from HighGraph that I would bring, you can drive your car for years and years and years and 100,000 of kilometers. And then you get into your car, you drive to your own wedding, and the car breaks.
Okay.
You know what that feels like. Even if it happens once in every 10 years, that will be a total disaster. You might never buy that brand again, by the way, kind of a car brand. Yeah. Even though
I
it
hope
was
it didn't happen, Mario. It's just a metaphor, right?
Yeah.
People that are with me, you should know Mario is a very serious driver in all of this, and also a big motorbike rider. So we get a lot of automotive metaphors when we talk with Mario. So basically, you're saying that when you look at quality, it's a mistake to just look at it as an average. You have to unpack quality in terms of mission critical, business critical moments, and also specific customer experiences, and address it through the different perspectives of business circumstance. Okay.
Exactly. So it's not about average, it's about that particular instance, because that can actually destroy everything that you build up over years and years and years. And by the way, that might not sometimes, just comes to my mind now, might not only be a product question. Maybe, things happen and you cannot 100% avoid it, but maybe the organization is there to help the customer. Yeah. So, hey, worry not, we have you covered. There is a customer success team. And even if that breaks, you'll be back online in an hour or in 30 minutes or whatever. Yeah. That already, even when the product itself had an issue here. So that is, coming back to your question, that is a thing where we had a kind of, well, I would not say, is it really misunderstanding, but it's basically different interpretation of quality. Yeah? Quality as in, as you said, average, statistics, ratio of bugs versus features, and that looks great. And then you have the rare but catastrophic incident, and you have everybody complaining. So that's basically,
Okay.
and that also closes to the loop to what we discussed earlier, the DORA metrics. That was also something, when, for particular in the in the executive team, we were discussing about quality. I wanted to bring that data to the team, not to defend myself or defend the engineering team, but say, okay, this is the baseline. Now let's discuss, is it enough or is it not enough? Do we need to invest more? Do we not want to invest more? So we have a, baseline that we can discuss and consciously decide, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense. And also comforting for an Australian that might be stranded at 2 a.m. So all good. Mario, we've talked a little bit about AI. What has been your experience so far with AI and metrics? I guess AI generally, and then AI and metrics more specifically.
So AI, it has made a massive shift on our, I would say, not only our company, on our entire industry. When you think of the CMS space, that would probably go beyond this podcast here. So it affects the product, it affects the market, it affects the way we do product work. So my team, the product management designers work, and it affects the way engineering works, and it affects the features that we ship. So it's basically full circle, yeah. Everything is touched by AI, and everything is basically shifted. When we specifically focus on metrics, which is the scope of the podcast here, is AI, of course, shifted the bottleneck from, hey, building, shipping is no longer the bottleneck. Deciding is the bottleneck, and judgment is the bottleneck. So all of a sudden, we all see that when you follow LinkedIn, ship faster, and in the end, you're just creating feature bloat and a lot of nonsense that nobody will ever use. So in that sense, of course, also AI changed the metrics landscape. Again, lines of code, number of features shipped, or PRs per week, or PRs per team, or whatever. Not a relevant metric anymore in its own. Maybe you observe the trend once you've changed processes and tooling. But that's definitely where AI had a massive impact.
Talking about feature bloat, we're talking about a massive amount of activity that AI is enabling, and a massive amount of releases. So the metrics, are you saying when we talk about the metrics of determining which features we should focus on, or what decisions we should take, are supported by AI or confused by AI, or what is your thought there?
I would say, and some metrics that used to be more heavy, more important, are just becoming irrelevant.
Yes,
because AI can just code faster, ship
yeah.
faster, and all that. So it's not a bottleneck anymore. So I don't worry about the what used to be the bottleneck. The other risk that I see is this judgment idea. So it's still, a thing that we use in HighGraph is essentially, you are not only allowed, you are encouraged, you are even supposed to use AI.
Yes.
So, honestly, everything else, thing that I work, that I start, that my team starts, that engineering start, you should always start, thinking about, how can I make this faster, simpler, whatever, by using AI. Even we just hired 2 new team members, even in the case study interviews, that was absolutely the case. So there was an AI use case, and we want to see you, if you're applying for a job at HighGraph, we want to see you and observe how you use AI tooling. However, so basically use AI, but stand behind every line that AI produces. Maybe that's how I would put it. So if I'm discussing
Every line, Mario.
if I'm maybe in if it's line of code for the engineer, maybe not. Yeah, then it's more like big buckets and the critical aspects. Yeah. But for example, when we discuss shaping documents or PRDs or whatever kind of framework you're applying in your product organization, and you have this kind of document, and of course, the assumption is you have co-created that with AI, but you have to be able to answer every single thing. So if I ask my product manager, why is bullet number 3 saying this and that? And the response is, I don't know, AI put it there, then I have a problem. Yeah. So that's basically the thing. That's what I mean with stand behind every line. And that's also why actually we at HighGraph, even though we're using quite high and pro and max plans and whatnot, even though we are still fairly often, actually this morning I personally did it again. I reached my limits and all that, and I need to pause a bit because it's not a one prompt and you get it out again. It's really debating and negotiating and refining, and it's like that. So it's really use AI, but also stand behind every line. You have to be able to explain why a certain decision was proposed, made. If not, do it again. Ask the AI or think about it yourself or remove it or whatever.
So looking forward, Mario, which metrics do you think will matter most in the future?
Maybe it's a bit hard to predict the exact metric. What I believe, definitely, it will be more outcome focused. And you see that already. I mean, that's basically public news. Yeah, that's not a secret. So really outcome as in customer value. So for example, at HighGraph, when you're creating content, I mean, it's not about actually using the product is only a means to an end. Yeah, it's a product tool. So in the end, if I'm a marketing person, I want to launch a campaign faster. I want to launch a new brand faster. I want to bring content, updates, all of that faster. Do less with more, basically, the headline. So the outcome will be basically, in our space, I could imagine a ratio like what's the effort, the time, the people that are the resources that I had to put in versus what was the outcome. And either I get more, higher degree of personalization, segment of one, these kind of things, or I have a smaller team, or I'm faster, whatever. So anything outcome. So outcome in the eyes of the customer. I think that's what we will see. And also these kind of internally more the metrics that will improve decision quality. If I'm decision quality, yeah, because if I'm thinking about something and have an idea and I have an hypothesis, I mean, I can always have my co-AI collaborating with me and, hey, Mario, I think you're off here. And let me bring you some data and, that kind of discussion. So it will actually help improve these decision-making processes. So what exactly that will be, I don't know. And the third one that we see already is definitely, particularly in our area, but probably also elsewhere, is when content gets consumed by agents. Mm-hmm. So build your products not only for human users, but actually for a human user. Build your products for a human user who collaborates with their own agent.
Sure.
Yeah. So how does that look like? And all of a sudden you get, you need different formats. It's not about shiny, beautiful pictures. I mean, I always brought this example of when as a human, you book a hotel, you look at a fancy website and it has this beautiful white lens picture of the room, which turns out to be a 12 square meter thingy and very narrow. Yeah.
But the agent doesn't care. You're getting a 12 meter square.
The agent doesn't care. They look at the facts and give me the data, and they will tell you, what, Mario, it looks good on the picture, but beware.
Yeah.
It's a bit, here are ratings and here are reviews by others, these kind of things. So the agent needs different information, also at a different pace, when it comes to speed of consumption and all of that. So that's definitely what we're going to see. And in that sense, particularly in the CMS area, there will be metrics about agent consumption, definitely.
And do you see agents as better tooling for metrics going forward? Like, can you imagine agents supporting metrics or understanding? monitoring, for
I mean,
example.
they can go deeper on anything data. They can create dashboards better. They can even act on metrics or dashboards. Why not? I mean, why is it me that, as we said in the beginning, yes, I implemented these engineering metrics, or I had us implement these engineering metrics. And right now I go there every month and say, okay, what does it look like? Why? I mean, if I know I'm only interested in if anything turns red, why do I even have to go there? Why can't we flip it around? So it's kind of push versus pull, or maybe it's, I don't look at the dashboard, but sounds weird. The dashboard looks at me, or the dashboard, the agent informs me about, hey, Mario, looks a bit off here. Should I send you some details?
Okay.
Well, yeah, like you said automotive, yeah? You're driving a car. If your, I don't know, oil level is below a threshold, the red light turns on. And that kind of, you don't need to check it every morning. Maybe that used to be 100 years ago, yeah? When Mercedes-Benz was invented in these very old-timer days, but not anymore. You just assume it, and unless the red lights turn on. And I could totally imagine this also to be the case, so that's the tools actually observe the metrics, they watch the signals. I mean, maybe they don't watch me personally, not Big Brother style and surveillance, but they watch the tools, they watch the signals, and so that basically they can raise an alert or raise awareness if there is something that I need to pay attention to. That's what
and potentially also provoke or coach or collaborate human interpretation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So particularly, these, when you think of also be a bit more creative. When you think of dashboards, a human-made dashboard will only turn red if it already has that metric on it. When you never thought about that, remember our example with the templates that we had, the startup projects. I mean, when we never thought about what actually happens to these templates after they have been launched and do they ever go live, then this will never show up on any dashboard. But an agent could immediately find out, hey, it looks what? You know what? There is a number of projects that spike in activity and then die and fade out, long tail, and are never opened again. And by the way, I found out these are these template projects. Maybe there is a correlation or causation even, yeah? Think about it. So again, that is where the creativity of AI could actually, and the data digging capabilities will help a lot.
The creativity of the data diggers, Mario. It's an optimistic, an optimistic note to finish on. So thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I think it's really important for us to all think about this challenge of the challenge of metrics, or the resistance to metrics not being one of the metrics themselves, but a need to understand and enjoy the interpretation of metrics to glean insights. And it seems that you're creating that culture fantastically at HighGraph. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Pleasure being with you. Thanks for having me, Liz.
Thanks for listening to Twin Signals, Metrics at Work. See you next episode.